So hi everyone, I am Brew Dave. I am a British distiller, distilling spirits here in the UK.
Dave! What have I told you about trying to steal my YouTube channel?
Crap.
Hi, I'm Brewbird. I'm a Canadian distiller making spirits in England. This is Dave, one of my bosses here. If you're interested in the drinks business or distilling, then this is the channel to subscribe to. So Dave, what are we doing in today's video?
So in today's video, we're actually pumping our molasses into our fermenter, ready for our rum fermentation. So I think, let's go.
This fermenter has a capacity of 2,000 liters, but since this is our first test batch, we don't want to do the full 2,000 liters. We're planning to just make a 1,000 liter pilot batch so that if something goes wrong with it, we won't be left with too much spirit. We filled the fermenter with 1,000 liters of water, but that amount of liquid wasn't enough to reach the heating element inside the fermenter. So we were forced to add another 500 liters of water so the heating element was covered. Once it was covered, we turned on the heating element and we wanted to heat the water to 34 degrees Celsius. Remember, we're replicating experiment number 31, which we did in our small-scale rum experiments in our previous videos. The tap water was around 11 degrees Celsius, and it took about 4.5 hours for the water to heat up to 34 degrees Celsius. It ended up being a really bad idea to try and use the heating element in the fermenter to heat up the liquid, as it took most of the day to do. In the future, I think we'll just quickly heat up some water in one of the iStills that are beside the fermenter, and then we can use our pump to transfer the already heated water into the fermenter. It took until 3:30 p.m. to get the water to the right temperature, so now we can finally add in the molasses. We're using our new ECCENTRIC screw pump to transfer the molasses into the fermenter. This pump is from Italy. There's a sensor on it to make sure that if the pump does not have liquid in it, it won't turn on. This sensor is to stop the pump from running dry, or running the pump without liquid, as running a pump dry will damage it. So this feature is meant to protect the pump. Now ideally, we would be able to attach our hose to the pump and connect it to the bottom of the IBC full of molasses. Gravity would do most of the work and push the molasses down through the hose and into the pump. However, the cam lock attachment we ordered for the hose to attach to the IBC container hasn't arrived yet. Without this attachment, we have to put the hose into the top of the IBC. We tried to run the pump, but of course it didn't run because it's dry inside. So I suggested we try priming the pump with water to get it to turn on. Here you see us lifting up the hose and me filling it with beakers of water. The pump did turn on for a few seconds when we primed it with the water, but then it stopped. So we had to prime the pump with the molasses. I was really hoping we wouldn't have to prime the pump with the molasses, as it's so much more difficult to work with than water. But what can you do? David has filled some beakers full of molasses, and we've put on some gloves. And here David is lifting the hose while I pour in the molasses. He's lifting it high up so that the molasses will go down all the way through the hose and into the pump. My goodness, it's a sticky business. I had to take my jacket off because it was running down my gloves and getting into my sleeves. But anyways, the molasses is in and the pump is primed, so it should run now when we turn it on. The molasses is going into the fermenter now. Oh no, the pump has shut itself for some reason. I guess we'll have to try and prime the pump again with more molasses. Well, the molasses is going in again. Oh, but it stopped again after about 5 minutes. Guess we'll just have to reprime it.
I gotta keep the muscles up for my YouTube fans, you see. That's what it is.
Oh,
Be
God.
back next Wednesday.
Oh, David, there's only enough room on this channel for one wannabe YouTuber, and I'm sorry to say it isn't you.
Until we do it over again, money doesn't go as far as you think, and you don't need a label for goodbye to sting. We dance until we bleed, dance until we bleed.
We ended up having to prime the pump 5 times in total, but finally we got all the molasses in, although it ended up leaving a bit of a mess everywhere. Now, as you can see, the hose is pretty long, and molasses, when it cools down, gets very sticky, so there's bound to be a lot of molasses stuck to the inside of the hose. So I'll take the end of this hose and the pump and move it closer to the fermenter. And I'll put one end of the hose into the top hatch of the fermenter. Then I'll start up the pump again to recirculate the liquid in the fermenter. The molasses and warm water mixture will empty from the bottom of the fermenter and travel through the hoses and pump and back into the fermenter through the top. The warm liquid will hopefully loosen the molasses stuck to the sides of the hose, making cleaning the hose easier later on and also getting more of the molasses into our fermenter. It's a double win. I'll just leave the pump to recirculate for about 10 minutes. While this is going on, let's talk about this green hose we're using. In the other distilleries where I've worked, they've used professional brewers' hoses like this Geissens CapTech. These hoses are lightweight, flexible, and the standard for the brewing industry. For a 5-meter long hose, I was quoted a price of £397. But David, the thrifty guy that he is, just purchased a 30-meter long PVC suction hose and then cut it into the lengths he needed. The inside has a white PVC shock-resistant lining to it. Then David purchased end fittings and just shoved them into the hose so that we can connect it to the fermenter and IBC. The 30-meter PVC suction hose and the 4 fittings cost £317 in total. I thought that was quite clever of David, and he saved over £1,000 by making his own hose too. The downside of this type of hose is that it's heavy in comparison to the CapTech hose and inflexible, whereas the CapTech hose is a lot easier to move around and carry. Also, this type of material is only rated for temperatures up to 60 degrees Celsius, so any liquids above this temperature can damage the hose. Okay, it's finished recirculating and I've emptied the remaining liquid from the hose into the fermenter. Now I'll just take the hose to the sink to clean it. I filled one side of the sink with warm water and I'll stick the inlet hose in this water. Good work, David. Good work. Then the outlet hose I'll stick into the drain. Then I'll turn on the pump again to flush warm water from the sink through the hose to rinse out any of the remaining molasses. Now I'll just clean the outside of the hoses.
You do.
What did I do? What did David do? God!
It's like you've got the pipe and basically pointed it around the room. You know, it's like, oh, I know, let's spray it everywhere rather than actually in the fermenter.
I would like to see you do better, Peter.
I think you
think we did a good job. I'm going to give us an A+ for effort. And where has David disappeared to while I've been doing all this cleaning? Well, he's finishing up our molasses wort for the rum. Since we're replicating experiment 31, we need to make sure that we have a Brix of 14. The Brix was at 15 or 16, so David ended up adding something like 100 liters more of water into the fermenter. Then he measured out the citric acid and put it in. He also turned on the agitator to make sure the citric acid was all dissolved. The pH meter is reading the right pH now, between 3.5 and 4. After we've got our target Brix and pH, it's time to pitch in the dried baker's yeast. There we go. And finally, we're done for the night. While we had the best of intentions to make only 1,000 liters of molasses wort, we ended up making closer to 2,000 liters of molasses wort. And we ended up staying 2.5 hours longer to get everything finished. The floor was mopped 3 times before we left, and it was still sticky even after that. Now we'll just wait for the fermentation to finish, and then we can distill our rum in the iStill. But that is for part 4 in this series. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching us fill the fermenter with our molasses for our rum fermentation. That was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it, David?
A little bit messy.
Yeah. Alright. Well, in the meantime, don't forget to support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more distilling and distillery videos. This is Brewbird.
And this is Dave, sending
Sending
you good vibes.
Bye.
Oh, then let me get into position.
Give me a Superman pose.
No, you've got to be careful because everything is recorded.
That's gonna be in the outtake.
That's it.
No, you're supposed to say it. You missed the most important part, Dave. All you had to do was snap. Nobody does.
So let's go.